Probiotics for the brain. Is it really possible to improve your mental clarity, your focus, your mood, build stress resilience, all by targeting the brain through probiotics? So I have Dr. Shawn Talbot with me here today. It is absolute honor to have you. I thank you so much for being here.
My
He's
pleasure,
a nutritional biochemist. He's a psychonutritionist. He's the chief science officer at the Mental Wellness Company and formulator of the Fundamentals Pack. How can we build clearer mind, better mood by targeting with probiotics? Like, it sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, well, it sounds crazy because people think about probiotics as just these things that work in the gut, and that, the kind of work that I do as a psychonutritionist is looking at what nutrients, including probiotics, things that you can put into your gut that actually have an effect psychologically to make your brain healthier, to make your brain work better, to make you feel better, to change your mood, to change your focus. And what we're finding is that, we've known for a long time that if you eat a terrible diet, like a Western style, standard American diet, lots of fat, lots of processed food, lots of sugar, fast food diet, we know that leads to more depression, right? We've known that for a long time. We also know that if people eat more of, a whole foods, less processed diet, like a Mediterranean style diet, for example, that has fermented foods and has lots of fiber and lots of phytonutrients and low sugar and no processed, and those people are protected from depression. But the science is allowing us to kind of peel it back and dig down to the root layers. And one of the things that we're finding is that specific strains of probiotic bacteria, things that you would think would just have their effects in the gut, don't stay in the gut, because those bacteria can produce neurotransmitters like serotonin, so we can be happier, or dopamine, so we can be more motivated, or GABA, so we can relax when we're stressed out. These are all examples of ways we can use probiotics to have a gut benefit, but then that gut benefit is transmitted through this thing we call the axis up to the brain. So this idea of harnessing the entire gut brain axis to change how we feel and perform is really, really new science. And, for a lot of people, it ought to sound like science fiction because they've never heard of it before.
Right. I find it interesting about like the stress resilience piece. Like, I understand the serotonin, the dopamine, the GABA, all those are created in the gut. But can you explain, I don't know, how it helps to build stress resilience? Because that's what I personally have experienced in using the protocol.
Yeah, exactly. And if you build a protocol the right way, what you're really trying to give somebody is stress resilience, because stress resilience is hard to achieve in somebody, because, on the one hand, we can boost serotonin and help somebody be happier. We can boost GABA and help them be more relaxed. We can lower cortisol and help them with less tension. But resilience is this sort of dynamic aspect of psychology. Resilience means that you can show up to a given situation and you can strategically figure out your way through whatever that problem is. And so that problem might be different every single time. Sometimes it's going to be a stress inducer. Sometimes it's going to make you sad. Sometimes it's going to make you irritable. Sometimes you really have to be able to be like dynamic and be able to think on your feet. So when we measure stress resilience in our trials, we measure something called cognitive flexibility. And this is your ability to think strategically and form plans. And that's something that has to happen sort of in the moment. And the only way you can get that is from affecting what's happening in the gut. And so the way I just kind of describe the gut to people is that if you can get a microbiome that is in the right balance, making the right neurochemicals that have an effect up here in the brain, what you get is this internal pharmacy that is dynamic, meaning it'll produce what you need when you need it in the right amounts. That's what we mean by resilience. And so someone with low resilience is going to show up to a given situation and there'll be a deer in the headlights, right? They will literally is what will happen. You'll show up to that situation, that what has hit the fan, and you will literally probably say either out loud or to yourself, I can't deal with this right now, right? And you step away from that situation. If you can improve somebody's resilience by affecting what's happening in the gut, and affecting what the gut is producing in real time, then you can show up to that same situation. And instead of stepping away from it, you step into it. And you might not be enjoying stepping into it, but at least you can step into it and say, all right, we're going to figure this out. We're going to do this. We're going to get to the other side of that. And I think that's something that people need now more than they ever have, you know, with everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like being able to be rational and less emotional.
Yes, that's a great way of saying it. I've heard other people say it gives you this space between reacting to the situation versus responding appropriately to the situation, right? That's how it is for me personally. I used to have a really short fuse. I would fly off the handle all the time at things. You know, something would irritate me and I'd just be like, oh, wow, yeah, you know? And now it's much more with that resilience. You're able to go, huh, all right, let's do this, you know? And that can be a big difference in a lot of situations.
Oh my gosh, especially with parents and kids. I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot with parents. Like, yeah, I used to freak out when the kid would leave the light on, you know, or something really simple. But now they're like, doesn't faze me in the least. Like,
right. If there's a time that people needed this, it is now.
Yeah. So that brings me to, let's talk about focus. Like, how does the gut affect our ability or inability to focus?
A lot of these mood states are not just, you know, we simplify it by saying happiness is serotonin and motivation is dopamine and focus is norepinephrine, right? That would be a simplistic way of saying it. Norepinephrine is made in the gut as well. It's made in the gut and it's made in the brain. That's one of the reasons that we call this your first brain and this your second brain, because they're being made in both places. But all of these different aspects of psychology are really kind of, they're overlapping of the neurotransmitters, right? So, you know, for all of these, you need a little bit of dopamine and a little bit of norepinephrine and a little bit of serotonin. And, you know, so it's just that one neurotransmitter does things exclusively. But on the focus side, norepinephrine really is one of those that we know some of these ADD drugs that people feel like they have to resort to, that works very strongly on norepinephrine. And so if you can get that, you can focus. But again, here's another aspect of focus that I think people forget about. There's one aspect of being able to focus, and norepinephrine can do that. But then there's another aspect of being able to focus in a calm, collected, engaged way. And you're not going to get that from Ritalin or Adderall or any of those kinds of things. You know, it's almost like the best kind of focus is this combination of focus, pure focus, but then also resilience and also calmness and also overlapping. And the only way to get that overlapping is through natural means, to try, like, your body should normally be in that state. And if we can get you out of this irritable brain fog, you know, buzzing, you know, what we call monkey mind, and get you into that state, that's what people are looking for. And it's so elusive because they think, oh, I need an energy drink, or, oh, I need an ADD drug, or, oh, I need another cup of coffee, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Those aren't going to get them to the place that they really want to get.
So it's about just the balance. I love what you're saying about, like, yeah, you can get somebody to focus, they're laser focused, but what else is going on? Like, are they like numb in that, like stuck in that state?
Yeah, exactly. So here's an example that might relate to a lot of people, is that, you know, you can increase somebody's focus by giving them a big dose of caffeine. And people have probably tried that before, right? But the kind of focus that you get sometimes isn't very useful because you're also agitated and irritable and tense. And so if you can give somebody focus and calmness at the same time, they can really get into that zone. And, you know, when I describe that, people sometimes say, well, wait a minute, those sound like opposite things. You're stimulating my focus, but then you're also calming me at the same time. Those seem like they would fight against each other, to counteract each other. But because they happen in different parts of the brain, you can actually send those signals from the gut to the brain. They hit different places, and you really get this, you know, you really get this locked in kind of, like, being in the zone is a way to describe it. You know, people should want to feel in the zone, whether they're an NBA player, you know, that's shooting 3-pointers, or if they're just trying to get their work done.
Sounds just so much more productive. So can you talk about the probiotics, the system that you formulated, and how it's different from someone just going to the shelf and saying, I need a probiotic. I
Right.
grab this one.
I ask people all the time when they say, oh, I take a probiotic. I say, oh, that's great. Which one do you take? And a lot of times they don't even know which one. If they do know which one, I say, oh, well, what strains are in there? Do you know what strains? And they have no idea about the strain. I ask them that question to kind of tease them a little bit, because most people will pick their probiotic based on what's on sale or what their friend is using. And it's really important to understand the strain designation of the probiotics that you're using, because some probiotics will only work in the gut. They'll work on things like constipation or diarrhea or gas or bloating or something like that. And those are great effects. But the kinds of things that we're talking about right now are specific strains of bacteria that will increase your GABA so that you're relaxed, or will increase your serotonin so you're happy, or will lower your cortisol so you're less tense. You have to pick the right strain. So one of the strains that I use, and of some of the products at Amare, is called Lactobacillus rhamnosus 11. So the 11 is the strain designation. It's actually R0011, but let's just call it 11 for a second. If you just went out and picked any old lactobacillus, you don't know, is it that strain that's going to help you lower stress, or is it another lactobacillus that's going to help you with diarrhea, or another lactobacillus that's going to help you with immune system function, right? Those are all lovely benefits. But if you're looking for a mental wellness benefit, you sure as heck better choose the right strain. Otherwise, you're getting an anti-diarrhea benefit. That might not be what you're going for, you know?
Wow, that's amazing. And I don't think that majority of people know. Like you said, you ask people like, what strain? And I'm guilty of that too. I used to say, oh, the ones that are in the refrigerator, the most expensive ones,
Right.
those are the ones I'm going to choose. I had no idea what the heck.
One of the reasons that most people don't know this concept that we call strain specificity, that the benefit is completely specific to the strain that you're choosing, is because scientists didn't even really have a good understanding of it as little as 5 years ago. So most of the products on the market don't even tell you what strain they use. And so there's no way for a consumer to know. But what I really want people to be aware of is that the companies that are following the latest science are choosing the right strains for the right benefit, and then going out of their way to tell people, we're using this strain because it's been clinically documented in humans to have this benefit. That allows us to get very precise and, almost therapeutic with some of the natural interventions that we're offering to people.
So I know it is still confusing for consumers. So you mentioned studies. Like, do all companies do studies? Do they have documentation? Do they?
Yeah, unfortunately, most companies don't do studies. So in the world of nutrition product, 80% of all the companies selling nutraceuticals do exactly 0 studies on their finished products. Of the remaining 20 that do any level of research, some percentage of them will just say, well, we're relying on the ingredients, right? The ingredient companies, the one that makes that particular strain, they've done some studies, and so we'll just piggyback on their studies, and that'll be good enough. A very small percentage of companies will go the next level and do their own studies on the final finished product. And that's important, because let's say, like we do at Amare, let's say that you take one strain that has been shown to help with stress, and another strain that's been shown to help with anxiety, and another strain to help with depression, and you put them all together. If you're an optimist, you would say, oh, well, good, they're all going to play together, and therefore we're going to get all these benefits, and they're going to be synergistic in their overall effects on how people feel. Well, you don't actually know that unless you do the studies, right? A pessimist might look at that and say, well, wait a minute, maybe the anti-stress one is going to fight with the anti-anxiety one, and maybe the anti-depression one is going to interfere with the signals of the others. And so, it might not be synergistic. It might be whatever the opposite of synergy is, that they get in the way of each other. And so you don't know that unless you actually do the trial. And so, we do those trials to be able to show people, look, this is the benefit that you get. And that I think is important, that a company stands behind their research and certainly chooses the right ingredients and does the right quality control and does the right sourcing in an ethical, sustainable way and everything, and then proves the products that they can live up to the claims when you plug it into your life.
Right. I posted this question the other day on like, what's most important to you, the ingredients, the studies, or the stories? And, and I think they all are equally important, but the stories is what gets me every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you were just at an event in
oh my gosh. That event was, I mean, I don't think there was a dry eye in the whole place. There were, I don't know, 150 or so people who came to that event in Mexico, and that just to hear the stories of how these products are changing people's lives and changing lives of their kids and their families and, their loved ones and things like that. That's where it's really real. And here's a scientist saying this, right? That I love the science and I love that we can, source clean ingredients and all that kind of stuff. So, the purity is important. The science is important. But when you hear what these products can actually do in someone's real life, their day-to-day existence, that's where it really matters, I think.
Yeah, the relationships. That's the thing.
Yep.
Those children that are now able to focus, they're not having meltdowns. You know what I mean? Like, that's life-changing. They're
right. And one woman shared a story that was just, and I, afterwards, Rich Higbee, he's like, "How do these stories make you feel?" Saying it to me, right, as the formulator. And I said, "It makes me feel terrible because we had to wear masks, right, because of the pandemic." And I said, "It makes me feel terrible." And he kind of looked at me. I said, "Because I can't breathe with this mask, and now the top of my mask is all wet from the tears of hearing all these stories." But the story she was sharing was, we hear all the time, people feel better, they perform better, their kids are doing better in school. But she shared a particular story about her kids, because they weren't able to focus, they got teased at school. And they weren't doing as well as their friends, and they got teased because of that. And then the kids started feeling inadequate in all these different ways, and they started feeling bad about themselves, So that's a whole other. I just got goosebumps when I said that story.
I'm like,
that's meaningful stuff to so many people,
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah, tell me. I mean, I cry when I hear the kids' stories. It gets me every time, because you're impacting that child for the rest of their life. It's just unbelievable, the impact. So this was super amazing. I really, really appreciate your time. If you want more info, reach out to the person that invited you to this event, or you can just comment more info and we will get back to you. Dr. Shawn, you are an absolute gem to the planet, honestly, because we are making a difference in people's lives. We are impacting people's lives in such a different way. Like you said, we have the studies to prove it, right? And we do have a 1 year money back guarantee, which is crazy. I never heard of a company doing that.
Right.
That's insane.
I would just encourage people, Dale, if they hear this message and it's intriguing at any level, give it a try. They're easy to use. They're all natural. They have these benefits. And if you don't get the benefits that you thought you were entitled to, we'll give you your money back, because we want people to have the benefits that they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to make this world a better place, like one person at a time, right? And we are doing that, and one family at a time. It's amazing what we're seeing. It really is. All right, Dr. Shawn, you're the best. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I know you're popping on to another call all day long, right?
All day long. Get this message out. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.